Hey guys, Browserkins back from a long holiday weekend. It's good to see you guys again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a plus 16 Sanguine Depths done on my Brewmaster Monk. And we're going to be doing this from a perspective of trying to improve ourselves as a um, hug tank as opposed to someone who's an organized group. As you guys may know, if you followed my YouTube channel in the past, I generally post content from my push keys with my group. Um, but since it's the holiday week, really haven't been getting together to do much. So we're going to be taking a look at this pug key. I'm going to give you guys helpful tips for how you can kind of bail yourself out of situations where your pug teammates might be letting you down, especially find that happening a little bit more around the plus 15, plus 16 range from time to time. And yeah, going to see how this key goes. All right, so we started out here rolling around the corner. And since it's inspiring this week, I can tell immediately going down the hallway that there's an inspired pack down there, right? Which is going to create some issues for us in the way that we're not going to be able to stun any of the skirmishers from getting their weapon off, right? So my initial job here is to get as much aggro as I possibly can. As you can see, the animate weapons they all go off. That's just kind of a situation you're going to have to deal with. It's not as bad since it's tyrannical. On a high fortified key, those animate weapons can actually do a ton of damage to you, so always keep that in mind. If it's not an inspiring week, generally the best option available to you is make sure you get an AoE stun out on the pack. Because it's a plus 16, everyone blew their cooldowns. We get through it pretty well, especially with the arcane mage there. The damage is pretty high. All right, so with this pull, what we want to do is make sure of two things. Number one, since there's an inspired pack in here, you want to focus it down as quickly as possible. In this situation, it's the Huntmaster. And the reason that we want to focus the Huntmaster down isn't actually because of any one other ad in this pack. It's because we want to go down the hallway here into the doorway and pull this extra tick. As you can see, I'm starting to hurt. I'm above 50% stagger, but I managed to stabilize there pretty quickly thanks to the help of my healer. I throw my ring down just to create some additional separation between me and the things that are hitting me. Normally, I would be faster about this, but in a plus 16, it's not as big of a deal. But generally, if you want to get this pack down as quickly as you possibly can, the goal is going to be to kill the Huntmaster that's inspired as quickly as possible, and then come grab this tick. This ends up working out relatively well for us though, because we still have the brute that we have to kill. So, two target cleave the brute and the tick down. Don't lose a ton of time from it. As you guys notice, and I like to state this in every key, I click my spells. I know that triggers the heck out of a lot of people. I consider it something that's a little bit more of an impressive aspect of my gameplay because I'm able to do 22, 23 keys while clicking. Um, but I absolutely recognize that it's not an efficient way of doing things, and I highly suggest that if you're capable of doing it and you don't have physical limitations like I do, um, I highly suggest that you learn keybinds. You make sure that happens at all times. Um, Constantly working on your keybinds. So nothing special here. We just pull Arcaloth. We kill him. General good rule of thumb here: when you're pulling Arcaloth, I don't believe I practiced this because I was getting a pretty good understanding that my group is competent. Generally, try to let the first Inferno cast. Yes, yeah, I kicked it right away. I'm not even living up to my own advice. The hallmark of any bad dad, right? Um, let the first Inferno go at least 50% before you kick it. And that's because, again, since you're pugging, you don't know when someone's going to kick unless you're being really detailed in chat. You don't know when someone's going to use their kick. And generally, when someone sees that kick for the first time, they're just going to look at it and be like, oh, I need to kick that, and then kick it immediately. And if everyone uses their kick on the first Inferno, then you guys are going to all take that next one. Fortunately, that does not happen to us. So we grab Champion's Brand. Not a bad option for Brewmaster Monk. I still suggest that you go defensive. Um, but with it being a plus 16 and my character being at 248 item level, it's not a big deal. If anybody's, by the way, interested in what talents I'm running, there isn't a huge variance in the strategy behind Brewmaster Monk. There's only a few rows, and all of them are really close to each other except for one. And I want to iterate the importance of running special delivery right now. The talent that wasn't picked a lot last season, or really even in 9.1, but they buffed it in 9.1.5 to double the damage that it previously did. It got a 100% buff. And along with the 15% slow that it provides now, it is an absolute powerhouse for providing um, a little bit more. Um, well, I should say a lot less dependency on your teammates to slow things as you're trying to kite. That special delivery is going to come in, slow everything by 50%, and especially if you pair that with light brewing, very very powerful. All right, so nothing overly special about this pack. On a fortified setting, in a fortified setting, this can be very deadly. Our strategy there was to just burn down the tick that was inspired. The other option that's available to you, if you don't think your group is going to be able to handle it, is to just use a hard CC on the tick that's spiteful or inspired, I should say, and just bring the rest of the pack back. Just make sure you don't damage the inspired pack when it's already CC'd, or it'll break it, and then you'll be in a world of hurt. Another thing here with this boss, if you see someone kind of running off into the corner and they're purposely trying to get away from the group, that's a good indication that they're trying to um, avoid the damage, whether it be. I'm gonna go ahead and pause this because this triggers the act out of me. I want to finish this thought though. Um, if they're trying to move away, it means they're going to use something like ice block or turtle or something. So you don't want to step in front of that because it'll still shoot towards them, and if you're the only one who gets hit, you can actually take a pretty significant amount of damage. So keep an eye on that. If your party member is running out of the group, just anticipate that they're going to use something to negate the damage. There's always a possibility, though, that they just don't know what they're doing. And if that's the case, um, rip. All right. So, one thing I want to touch on, there's an established strategy on this boss, and it still shocks me to this day when people do not follow that established strategy. The strategy is for the tank during this ability called Severing Smash, the tank will go towards this door over here, and everyone else, the healer and the DPS, whether you're melee or ranged, everyone else will go the opposite direction. The direction that we all came from when we entered into this corridor. Okay? That's the reason. The reason that we do that is because when he smashes, it's going to spawn the orbs, and the general rule of thumb is that the tank will soak his orb immediately because the boss is going to be running towards where the tank is, and then everyone else who's on the side where we came from when we first entered the corridor will have orbs spawn, and then they just run past them and continue DPSing the boss. And the healer, at this point, because the boss is so far away from the orbs, can heal everyone up and soak up those orbs as he sees fit. Here, as you can see, I think 3 people stand on the tank side of the boss. 3 people, including myself, right? And one of the orbs hits him, and then I'm left with the difficult decision of like soaking up more than one orb. So I think at least one of them hit. The mage grabbed his own. In a higher key, in like a plus 20 or higher, that same orb setup would have wiped the group. 100%. Everyone would have simply died. So please always make sure that you're positioning correctly. So we can see the rogue is kind of standing in that area. He didn't really move. I don't trust that, so I went over and stood in front of it, and it turned out to be the right move. And the rogue is already kind of, he's in my periphery as a person who can make mistakes. A, because he didn't move out, and as you can see there, he continues to not move out. And B, because he in general does not seem to be super in touch with what he's doing. So at this point, I'm trying to move the boss away from the doorway a little bit. I want to give myself a little bit of space. The Juggernaut Rush is coming out. As you can see, we do not do good on that one, right? We only have 2 people. The Warlock and the Mage, for whatever reason, have been way off in the corner for a lot of the fight. This is not how you execute this fight. Everyone needs to be stacked up and then spread for the smash. You see the Rogue, yet again, gets smashed in melee, greeting for damage. And it makes it that much more difficult for the group. And you don't have to be very far away. I mean, if you're a melee and you want to have some uptime, you want to greed for that, that's fine. Just make sure that you're at least 10 yards away from the boss when the smash comes out. If you're right on top of him, things can go bad. Of course, it's a plus 16, and I'm super geared. The healer is at this point, I mean, he healed for almost 7k in the fight. And, it's whatever. So here we have a specific strategy. I'm going to paralyze the oppressor over there, and then I'm going to pull the rest of the pack here. Now I don't know who does it, but somebody pulls, whether it be accident or on purpose, somebody actually deals damage to that oppressor over there and breaks the CC. So now we've got an inspired pack in here with the oppressor and a bunch of acolytes. Generally not a good thing. On top of that, I miss my kick on that curse, and it goes out to, I think, the mage. So also not good. But we managed to recover. Again, generally, when you being a pug tank, if your kick is up, you want to take agency on getting the kick. You don't have to necessarily be like lightning fast about it, but my general strategy is if the spell's beyond 50%, you kick it yourself. It's just that I missed it there. Didn't realize I was out of range. And when you play Guardian Druid and you play Blood DK as your main characters, you're used to just being able to kick stuff from far away. And when you're playing a Brewmaster Monk, you got to be right on top of whatever you're trying to interrupt. It can be frustrating at times. So because this is only a plus 16, and I know we've got plenty of time, I come over here and kill Oros. On tyrannical weeks, especially in higher keys, at this point in the season, people should be able to skip this guy. Fighting the last boss in Sanguine Depths with a slow is not a stressful affair. It's very, very doable. The only way you kill yourself on the last boss because of the slow is if you've made a significant error in your positioning that didn't allow you to move somewhere fast enough. Because the actual movements, just the amount of yardage that you have to cover with any one of the mechanics is actually quite low. All right, so coming into this pack, we have 2 key concerns, right? We've got the Overseer who's going to do his Dread Binding, and there's other things happening in here, but these are the big ones. Grand Overseer is going to be doing the binding, and for the Oppressor, they're going to be doing the Curses of Suppression, right? Which can silence your healer, and that's obviously a really bad thing. You're going to see what I do here to address the issue of the suppressors, right? Or the oppressors, because I don't know which one of these characters is going to kick, if any of them. So I'm going to show you generally what we want to do here. The Gloom Bursts are coming out. We want to save our kick for the important thing. Unfortunately, nobody else is kicking. They all have the same idea. Like, I've got to interrupt the curses, right? So what did I do there? Let's rewind a little bit. When I see the Dread Binding thing come up on my DBM, Dread Binding, bang. what I do is I leg sweep immediately. You can see my leg sweep is on cooldown down here. I hop out. Now my Blood DK and my Guardian Druid, I straight up just tank the Dread Binding. But I don't trust it when I'm playing my Monk. So I hop out. I use my Crash ability that pulls an enemy towards me to break the cast on the other one. And that did a great job of actually interrupting all of the potential curses that went out. I stopped all of them there, right? Again, you don't want to rely on your teammates so much in pugs. In push groups, when you're doing high keys or you're just pushing with your buddies, you can communicate that stuff to them. And you can have more dialogue, especially if you're in voice, right? But if you're not in voice and you're relying on pugs, it can be stressful. All right, another thing here. Generally, with most routes, this is not always the case, but please, if you're a tank, follow this route that I'm about to show you. This 3-pack here has a fair amount of HP. It takes a little while to kill these guys. Now, we're doing a slow route here, and especially on a Tyrannical week, this is not necessary to only pull these 3. But if you go beyond these 3, especially on an Inspired week, things can get pretty dangerous. So if you're just pugging a 15, and you don't want to get too sweaty about it, it's fine to pull these 3. But the person who's popping the urn must understand that these things need to be at like 20% health before you pop this. And I'll show you why here in a second. So we go through, we kill this. I see that the rogue has popped the urn, right? So again, I war stomp there because I don't have my leg sweep back up. I interrupt the 1. I think one curse still got off, unfortunately. I don't know who it went on, but it got dispelled immediately. Okay, so I know the urn is ticking. This is what I always do. I pull this room in when this group is about to die. All right, and the reason I do that is because I'm looking for stacks, fam. If you don't get 9 or 10 stacks on this urn, it's a bust. It's a huge bust, actually, because you should get 10 stacks on this urn. But because we popped it so early, we're not actually able to get a full reset. You can see that we kill the Overseer here, and then the urn closes shortly after that. Can't see exactly when. Yeah, okay, so now it's closed. We got 3 stacks on us, which is basically the size of the pack we killed. Right? And we did not get the reset or any of these subsequent kills. Now, if we had gotten the 5, 6, 7, 8 stack right there, this guy would have melted. We would have easily obtained 8 or 9 or 10 stacks of the buff, right? Instead, we only have 3, and it only has 40 seconds going into this pull. So very unfortunate. So it's important that you line that timing up. If I'm playing my Bear Druid, I actually just pull both those packs with my push group. Doesn't matter if it's fortified or tyrannical. You can see there, I actually parried that one, and then I came back and I crashed the Curse of Suppression, and then he tried casting it again, and then I kicked it. If you take agency over the bad spells, the ones that are going to kill the group, it's going to work out for you. Keep that in mind. You got to be a self-sustaining unit to get into these 16 keys and improve your chances. Now, if you want to think like, oh, it's not my responsibility, I can't do everything. Mentally, you're already in a bad spot. All right. So we pull the javelin out here. Again, this is a very safe route. This accommodates the possibility that we might wipe in the hallway. A lot of people like to skip this with invis pots or a rogue skip. Just keep in mind, if a mistake is made down the road, not only have you lost your DPS potion, but you've also now walked into a situation where you didn't plan to kill something and your route didn't accommodate it, but now you have to, right? You see there, I'm out of cooldown, so I'm like, man, I don't want to tank these 2 big dudes. I think it's here in the chat that I type out to my rogue, please Shiv, or something. Yeah, I type out Shiv. And that's because the actual enrage that goes on to these guys is, an enrage. Right? It's not rocket science. A hunter or a rogue or a druid can take the enrage effect off these guys, and it will do a ton of damage to them because the enrage is effectively acting as additional HP. And when you take the enrage away, they lose that temporary HP. So if something's at like 40% health, like one of these guys is 40% health, and you hit him with the soothe, it generally is going to instantly kill them. Now I think he says something like it's on cooldown or something, but I only saw two guys get big in the first place. So I don't know what he used the first one on. But as you can see, this fight drags on and on and on. If we had just had the shivs go out on time, it was on cooldown. I just don't. I don't think he knew what was going on. I think what's incredible is this rogue's not doing terrible damage, and I think he had KSM. It just goes to show like the caliber of player that you can experience in here, where they actually just don't know what's happening around them. They don't know the things that they can do in the dungeon to make it easier because they haven't been doing anything to educate themselves on the different ways they can help the group. And you as the tank or anyone else, whether you're a healer, whether you're a DPS, you got to do everything you possibly can to fill the weaknesses out there. For me, I just type out Shiv, and if he doesn't understand what's going on, you just write it off as a loss. Okay, so situation here. We have the Warden, but as you can see here, the pack down the hallway there has Inspired. We do not want the Warden near Inspired packs because he will get his Barb Shackle off. Now you can see I looked this other direction here. Watch as I turn my camera after I make sure that's kicked. I think I actually used my kick too. I turned my camera here. The reason I did that is because I don't remember there being an Inspired pack here. Now, normally what I would do is I would pull this pack over to this urn. I would pull this pack in with it, and we would just get a big pile of urn yumminess. But I realized because this is Inspired, and the other side is Inspired, I'm not going to be able to pull this Warden into either one. So at this point, I'm hoping because the skull marker's on here that my group kills the Warden quickly so that I can move the other two over the urn. Let's see how it goes. Feel free to help your group out by pulling the Warden ever further away from the scribes. As you can see, I don't have a kick there. The shackle goes out and sticks our priest right in the middle of a massive pool of death. And since our priest has now died, I cannot chain pull this pack into the urn. What we have to do instead is kill this pack, and then I'm going to resurrect the priest. Fortunately, our warlock makes the hot decision of B-resing him, and the priest actually takes it. So basically wasted a B-res there. All right, so let's see if our rogue pops it early again here. We've got our cantrip. I forgot that I had an inspired pack here, but as you can see, it doesn't matter all that much here in a sec. Yeah, there we go. All right. So I actually cast Crash onto that quill feather to get the stack because those little quill feathers, despite the fact they have no HP pretty much, they still do give a stack. All right, so I taunt this pack in. I don't normally pull this pack, but this was an edit to my route, and this is because I'm used to being able to get 5 or 6 stacks on this, right? So with this, we're going to be able to get the reset hopefully, and that will put us at 5 stacks. It's important that we do get the reset though, because at this point we're only at 2 stacks, and we have less than a minute left on the buff. As you can see up here, I don't have a weak aura for this. I probably should get one. But we only have 2 stacks. It has 47 seconds left. Not good. So I make sure to touch of death there just to make sure that we get the stack reset. I didn't know what the timings was on it, but I knew it was close. I wasn't taking any risks. All right, so one thing we're gonna need to worry about here, guys, as the tank, this remnant of fury is going to cast a thing called explosive anger. If that gets out on a party member and that party member doesn't have a way of being dispelled or making themselves immune before the damage comes onto them, in a high fortified key, it will instantly one shot them. So keep an eye on the remnant of fury. The explosive anger can be kicked, and I suggest always keeping an eye out for that. In terms of this hallway, it's the second highest priority. Now, in this situation, because we're fighting an inspired pack, there's actually no way to deal with it. But since it's on the priest, we're hoping that he dispels himself. And we see that he doesn't there, so he takes about 2/3 of his health in damage. That would have killed him on a higher fortified key. Now, of course, Mage has a decurse, so it was a big blunder on his part to not dispel himself, but I'm sure he didn't recognize the deadliness of it. We get the curse, or we get the kick on that next explosive anger from this remnant, though. So we're killing the pat inside of this urn. We're at 5 stacks right now. We desperately need to get. And you can see the curse goes out on the rogue. I thought we were actually going to kill it, so I didn't bother going over to kick it. The rogue, I think, cloaked it because he took no damage. So you can see here, one blunder, our range DPS starts pounding on this stuff before I get it over to the group or before I get it to the urn. That's a huge no-no. Please do not do stuff like that. Let the tank get the stuff into position. If you can see he's trying to get it into the urn, you damaging it a bunch is just going to make it more difficult for him to keep aggro so that he can pull it into the urn with line of sight. And as a tank, you have to basically assume that the DPS is going to be I don't want to say dumb because I don't want to be toxic, but you know, playing less than optimally, I will say, is probably the best way to put that. Less than optimally, fan. All right, so Barb Shackles come out. We kick that. Actually, delete him. You can see our mage popping off at 38k. I guarantee you that was some massive arcane blast crit that just went off there, like world record breaking arcane blast. If you have not played Arcane Mage this expansion, it is the most underrated spec in the game, period, in terms of how fun it is. It is I mean, it's such a blast to play. I recommend it to everybody. All right, so we've got 20 seconds left on this buff when I pull the boss. We're going to do as much damage as we possibly can here, right? We popped a lust. Got 20 seconds on this guy. And our goal is to absolutely smash him. As you can see there, I throw out my Ring of Peace. That helps keep that red patch off the ground directly underneath the boss. If you can push that guy back right before he dies, it's a huge bonus to the group because they don't have to move as much. You do that with Druid Typhoon, Brewmaster, Ring of Peace. Whatever way you can to make it happen. Hopefully, if you don't have one of those options, if something's not available to you as the tank, that your party member can help out. So I touch a Death the Ad there just to get it off the board, get more damage focused down onto the boss. At this point, we're looking pretty good. Pretty easy crushing of this fight. And I think everyone should know pretty much what to do in this boss fight by now. Hopefully. A lot of sanguine depths in everybody's life, considering there's only been 8 dungeons this expansion. All right. So for count, before you go down into this hole, you need to consider a couple of things. If you plan on doing the skip with the lieutenants before the bridge leading up to the final boss, you need to be at 75%. If you plan on killing that pack, you only need 70%, okay? Because that pack actually provides a decent amount of count. But for me, I don't like killing that pack. It's annoying. So I just say, all right, 75%. I'm at 77% here. Obviously, our route got a little bit screwy there because of us having to pull that extra pat in the rear side to get us that extra earn buff. But we're at 77% after my edit. Not too bad. All right, one strategy here. With the inspired pack, we have to do this a little bit differently to be efficient. So we're going to kill this oppressor by itself, which in itself seems awful. And trust me, in the moment, it feels awful. But you basically just write this off as inspiring adding 20 seconds to your key. Basically, kill the single enemy. Then you're going to pull these two in with Sagadon. They don't do a lot of physical damage at all, so you're not going to be taking that much more damage than normal. You just have to make sure that this doesn't happen. Which is Sagadon pulling everybody into the chains while Quaking is just about to go off and murder everybody. Not a good time, and as you can see, it completely destroyed our healer. The second thing you need to make sure is that the oppressor does not get his curse off. You do not want that. Curses are bad. And even if you have 4 people in your group that will decurse, unless you can decurse, treat it as though the group can't decurse, because you never know what these folks are going to be doing in these keys. They could not even have. It could be to the point where they don't even have their decurse key bound, right? Or in my example, since I click, they don't even have it on their bar, right? Okay. So I pull these other 2 oppressors in with the boss. This is not something that I suggest that you do with a pug. This is just something that I wanted to do. And the reason for this is because they will cast their curses during the boss fight, which adds a lot of stress onto you as the tank, because now you're going to have to worry about tanking the iron spikes, which does a huge amount of damage. As you can see, I'm at almost 100% stagger here at the end of the iron spikes cast, right? And this is something that I'm absolutely 100% going to have to take care of with a purifying brew, right? And also, you're going to have to worry about getting the kicks and or stuns on the curses as you're going around collecting the orbs. Very, very difficult to do if you haven't practiced it before, because it's a lot of stress. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the orbs come out. The orbs always come out around the same time as when the curses are about to go out. So there should be one more rack soul and then curse. Yeah, so here's the curses. I leg sweep those. The swirlies come out, and at this point, it's like every man for himself. I kick one, the other curse goes out on the mage, which is a lot better than if it went out on the healer. But that's the life we live, right? In the pug. That's why I say don't actually do this. Because as you can see, I stunned the first round of curses. And then after the initial round of curses went out and it was time to kick them, still nobody kicked them, right? So if that silence had gone out on the healer, it could have been a very bad day for the whole group. So keep that in mind. All right, so general rule of thumb here is the tank. Um, you only need 1 or 2 of these orbs. Don't grab 3. That's super greedy. You have more health, you have more defensives than everyone else. Unless you are completely tapped on defensives and you need them for the iron spikes, the best advice I can give you is to let your party get the additional orbs, because they're going to need it more than you. All right, so this is what it looks like when I don't have cooldowns for an iron spike. Bang. Even in a 16 tyrannical. Now, if that was a plus 21, plus 22 tyrannical, and I went in that situation without my cooldowns, I'm just dead, 100%. I didn't have anything for the iron spikes. I should have died, but I didn't. Ooh, stand in a swirly. Let's do it, dude. All right, so another iron spikes here. Thankfully, I have Celestial Brew. As you can see, it doesn't matter all that much. I think the healer was probably concerned with something else, and I went from full HP to 0 pretty quickly. That was my fault, though, right? I mismanaged my cooldowns so badly in this fight. You can see, like, because he killed me, I was salty and touch of death there. Not necessary by any means, but he killed me, so I killed him. Sometimes you got to get your revenge. You got to get even. All right, so for this pack, pretty straightforward. You want to keep an eye on the volatile traps appearing underneath you. It's something that we've dealt with throughout the dungeon so far, especially that first corridor when you start the key. As a pug tank, just make sure that you're getting as much done as possible, and that you're getting the kicks on as many curses or interrupting the curses best you can. You can see one goes out on the mage there. It's at this point it's par for the course in the key, right? So many curses have gone out at this point but you can't let yourself get jaded. You can't do it. Don't get super frustrated with your teammates, even if everyone dies because the curse gets out. Just go again, dude. There's no sense in like flaming people mid key. Just focus on what you're doing, and if they flame you, just take it on the chin, dude. Even if you know it wasn't your fault. All right, so I tell him to shroud here. I figured he was going to shroud. He shrouds right before the quaking, as you can see here. I'm typing out the shroud thing. It has 6 seconds on the weak aura. Now, as you can see, we have like 14 seconds before. I mean, I don't expect the people at this key level to have this weak aura. They probably don't. So they don't know this. But we're rolling up on this pack. General rule of thumb is everyone skips this, right? Like literally everyone. We pulled the pack at the bridge before this one, right? That technically people skip too. But that one's like still subjective because the lieutenant's in there now. This one, everyone skips. Everyone skips. And because we had that debacle in the hallway with the urn and I had to pull an extra pack, this is just like extra count. So as the rogue shrouds after I tell him to, we have like 4 seconds before the quaking is potentially going off again. 1 second. So basically, the moment he shrouds, quaking is on us. Now, quaking does not break your shroud because quaking does not do any damage to you unless you get hit by someone else's quake. Your own quake will not do anything to you except interrupt your spell casting and silence you for a while. If you were casting while it was going off. Otherwise, it does nothing, and Shroud works just fine. Unfortunately, 2 of our buddies up front quake each other, and it breaks the stealth. Looks like it was the mage. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'll just pull the pack, and I'm anticipating that we're going to fight the pack. Unfortunately, the group doesn't get the memo, and they think they can still skip it, but they can't because healing has gone out. It hit the mage. There's absolutely no way that it's not going to come over there and kill everybody. So at this point, we have to fight the pack. Now, I'm already so far behind. I've popped pretty much everything, including my fortified brew. I'm like panicking, right? And as you can see, like an idiot, you're going to see it because the play bar here is right in the middle of it. I don't have any charges in my Kyrian file. So I could have certainly used that. I don't know if I think I actually summoned it in the middle of this pack when I realized that I didn't have it. Yeah, there I go. And then I use it. Man, I was fighting that pack without a Kyrian file. I almost killed myself because I didn't have one, right? Silly mistake on my part. Always make sure that you're expecting the worst and try to self-sustain as much as you possibly can. Because you never know when your teammates are going to, in their own head, make a decision that's not going to work out for the group. We get past it, though. We recovered. No small part, thanks to the healer getting my health bar picked back up. All right, dismiss the steward, and then we're into the final corridor. Number one mistake I see from pug tanks when I DPS this key is they go into this pole right here as cold as a fresh pair of sheets, dude. You cannot do this. This pack will murder you. It's the cadets, it's the acolytes, It's the sprites. It's the two Gargans that are be coming down, plus the boss on Tyrannical. This pack hurts. You have to use cooldowns when you engage these packs. You must use the cooldowns, especially if you're on a tank that's not that geared. You need cooldowns for this pack. So someone pulls this next pack over. This was not ideal because my dampen harm wasn't up yet. Actually, really nothing was up except my celestial brew. So I would have preferred if this didn't happen. But we're gonna try to deal with it best we can. I can still stand in the pole. I'm not in red alert area yet until just now, right? Where I know I don't really have much of anything. And that's when I drop my ring. Try to keep as much aggro onto the Gargans as they run down the hallway as possible. Because when they first come into a group, they can, especially on fortified weeks, they can actually just one shot one of your melee DPS if you don't get quick aggro on the Gargans. So you can see here, I try to line up a keg smash or a spinning crane kick whenever they're coming into the group, just so that I can get that initial aggro. Very important. All right, so we pop the urn here. Again, trying to keep as much aggro on the Gargants as we can. Looks like we don't have aggro on one of them because the health bar is red. I pull over the Acolytes, and again, the key here is to get aggro as quickly as we can. I throw out a leg sweep. More and more aggro. Gloom Squall comes down. I throw down my banner. People don't die. It also helps to save people from a lot of that Dark Bolt damage. As you can see, like, Sanguine is, or not Sanguine, Waking is not fun in here. It just isn't. Lots of people getting hit by other buddies' quakings. The hallways are super narrow in here. All right. At this point, we're in the home stretch. We've still got 10 stacks of the buff. We're a little slow here because I anticipate our DPS blew their cooldowns killing the pack on the urn, as opposed to saving them for after we killed the stuff on the urn, which is highly, highly efficient. You always want to make sure you don't use the cooldowns while you're killing things on the urn. You save them for the subsequent pulls where you're going to have 50% more damage. You get way more value out of them that way. It's just like the first boss in Mr. Tyrannus Scythe, right? You don't blow your cooldowns on pull. Blow your cooldowns when Ingram Malik is exposed and taking 200% extra damage. Works the same principles in play here. All right, so one thing you saw me do here, well, you actually saw me do a couple of things. Number one, again, top priority when you fight these noble skirmishers, make sure they don't get their animate weapons off. It spawns a sword for each of them, and it does melee damage to you. It's unnecessary damage, and all you have to do to stop it is to stun them. For Brewmasters, I have Leg Sweep. I also, because I'm a Tauren, I have War Stomp. If you're a DK, you can use Mass Grip to move them and displace them, because that works as well. Bear can use their Incap Roar. If you're a High Mountain Tauren, you can charge and stun it as well. Lots of different ways. Any way to incapacitate the two skirmishers here while they're casting their animate weapons is going to stop that extra damage from coming in. You can see when they start casting their animate weapons, I'm going to leg sweep them. So boom, both of them go off. I leg sweep, and they don't spawn those ads. I also throw down my shield there. There's no reason not to, right? It's only got a 30-second cooldown, so I'm not gonna be fighting the boss. You can actually pop that shield down right before you pull the boss, because his first Gloom Squall in the final boss encounter is 30 seconds after you pull him, so it'll be back up every time. All right, this pack has an Inspire, but there's nothing to kick, right? These are just Hunt Masters. They're not the Skirmishers. They don't have the enemy weapons. The Hunt Masters are the ones that drop the traps. And those aren't mandatory to stun. You want to stress yourself out trying to stun those. You just got to move the pack so the melee don't stand in the traps. Pretty easy. And his melee don't expect the tank to move The pack when it has the traps, just like make sure you're not standing in one as it spawns. Again, be accountable to yourself and make the adjustments that you need to make first before you start suggesting things to the tank. Because in that situation, both parties can be wrong at the same time. All right. We pull the boss here. This guy's like super straightforward, especially as Brewmaster. I feel like I just have so many tools to negate this guy's damage. And the same with Blood DK. It doesn't matter what the key level is, even if I have Salgadon debuff. Um, those two classes are very well built to deal with this guy's damage profile. Like these quick successive auto attacks are perfect Brewmaster because it plays really well with your mastery. All right, you can see there we get a quaking out right when we're doing the Gloom Squall. That's not ideal, but it's something that we were able to overcome. And at this point, we're already halfway through this boss fight, right? Um, but generally, what you want to be doing here is keeping the boss moving, not stand in the red patches. Don't stand near someone with the red arrows, and you won't accrue any avoidable damage. If you're fighting this on Oros, by the way, to help your ranged out, try to make sure you're not like hugging the boss as you pop your shield down on the ground. That way they have more time to get over to it. My push group, we just drop the shield in the middle. We don't even try like moving. We lose some damage on the boss, but we also guarantee that nobody dies, and we much prefer that route. We much prefer that route. All right, this guy's just about dead. We're absolutely blasting him. Again, keeping an eye on the quaking. Don't stand in the red stuff. Don't stand on anyone with arrows. Use your cooldowns. Don't be greedy. Make your healer's job that much easier. And bam. GG. And look, I got some IO. Shows you how much I play the monk, right? But we beat that timer by 6 minutes, despite the fact that we weren't clean across the board. But, we had 3 deaths, which is, I mean, lower than you'll probably experience in a plus 16 if you're, um, in a pug with like an alt or whatever, right? Generally, you're going to have more than 3 deaths, but sometimes you'll have a clean run. But the point is to be introspective and recognizing your own mistakes, focus on those first, and like I said, try to format your route, your approach to the dungeon, pretty much everything. As a pug tank needs to be catered to the potential of your teammates not doing what they should be doing, and you trying to do the best you can to make it as easy as possible to time the key. Um, yeah, if you have any more questions, please post them in the comments below. This has been Bowserkins, checking out a plus 16 Sanguine Depths on the Brewmaster. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good one. Bye-bye.